Hello and welcome to Project 5P. We are officially back home in the comfort of our home, and it feels good to sleep in my own bed. And part of what we just went through on our road trip is what prompted me to make this video, because we basically encountered every type of acclimate winter weather that you can possibly imagine. We came in contact with ice, road closures and highway closures due to freezing, due to ice. We encountered flooding where we drove past lakes where the dam was literally overflowing and going across the freeway. We had snow, we had road closures due to snow, we had mud that we got stuck in. It was quite the adventure, but we endured through all of that a lot more comfortable probably than the average person, because of our preparedness mindset and because we went into the trip prepared to face those things, not only because we just do that normally, but because we've experienced this before and we're learning off of our own prior experience. So, there's a saying that a smart man learns from his mistakes. A wise man learns from other people's mistakes. So I'm trying to help you be wise by learning from not only our mistakes, but our successes and things that we've learned from our own experience that helped us on this trip. And, like I said before, one of the P's of Project 5P is prepare. And to have a preparedness mindset for adversity, for adverse conditions, for emergencies, also lends itself, the 5 P's are synergistic with each other. You can't properly protect or provide for those that you're in charge of or those that you have influence over if you're not prepared. So I wanted to share with you today the things that we took on our trip, not just this trip, but the things we have with us daily that made this experience so much easier, so much less chaotic, less stressful, less inconvenience, so that you can glean off those things. The first thing is a ham radio. Highly recommend that you have some type of alternate means of communication. The ham radio came in handy in several circumstances. Number one, when you're driving down the freeway, you've often seen, depending on the area, it says tune in to whatever channel, AM, for weather and traffic conditions. Well, that was off almost, to the point of being, it sounds cliche, but too quiet. So going through those weather patterns, we were able to, I keep bumping this phone, keep bumping this camera. We were able to turn on the ham radio to the local emergency services stations and hear what was happening miles ahead of us so that we could be prepared and take alternate routes if necessary, or whatever the case may be. It also comes in handy that if cell phone services are down, to communicate with the other people in your group, whether it's other vehicles, if you have more than one vehicle going, whether it's people just within your own vehicle when you get out of the vehicle and go in separate directions. Whatever the case may be, having an alternate means of communication is very important, because services go down regularly, especially depending on where you're driving. Even if the weather conditions aren't adverse, you're in an area with no service. You need an alternate means of communication in case of an emergency, or not even just emergencies, mere convenience. It came in handy several times. In the preparedness community, there's a adage of 2 is 1 and 1 is none, implying that you need backups for everything, which is very, very true. But I take it a step further, and it's more like 4 is 2 and 2 is none. 4 is having a backup, because if you go by the PACE principle, which is an acronym that stands for primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency, you have 4 levels of backup for certain things. A lot of people use that for communication, but it can go for anything. So in this case, most people's primary means of communication is their cell phone. What if cell phone services are down? Happens quite often. What if you're just in an area of no service? What's your alternate means of communication? What's your contingency? What's your emergency? If those, I mean, it can go all the way down to, whatever, 2 cups and a string or whatever. Or, if you get down to, if all these other means fail, meet at X location at this time so we can communicate face to face. Whatever that plan is, have multiple means of communication and backup plans in case those methods fail. The second thing that we have, and I encourage everyone to have, is maps. Yes, old school paper maps. Same thing goes when it comes to cell phone services. Navigation. We were in several areas where navigation, just wasn't available. It says GPS signal lost. GPS signal lost. That happens even in town when we're visiting major cities sometimes. Do you want to rely on that? Most of the time it works, yes. But in an emergency situation, in dire circumstances, you want a backup plan and paper maps wherever you're going, whether it's, maybe it's just in your own state. If you're going cross states, have those maps for every state that you're going to cross, or the United States, or whatever the case may be. It also comes in handy because you have road closures. So the road closures could be due to weather. Road closures could be due to construction. Road closures could be due to a lot more serious conditions depending on the state of society. But you should always have alternate routes, not only in mind, but what if your alternate route is also blocked? Again, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. You should have multiple backup plans. So paper maps come in great handy when it comes to that particular scenario. The other thing that came in handy was fuel. We carry around extra fuel in the vehicle, gas cans. This comes in handy, obviously, for just transportation in and of itself, just for getting from point A to point B, especially if you're traveling long distances where gas stations might be sparse. Again, if you're caught in adverse conditions like we were last year, where you're stuck on the freeway for 9+ hours at a time, do you have enough gas to leave the car running? You might, in our situation, wanted the heater on. How are you going to account for that? Are you going to be able to keep the engine running? You should always have a backup fuel source and keep that in your vehicle. Just recently, we saw in the news how I-95 in Virginia was closed down for over 24 hours. These people were literally stuck, frozen in their car. Not frozen, I mean frozen by not moving. Almost frozen though, in the snow for over 24 hours at a complete standstill. So again, fuel. In that scenario, you're going to want fuel, extra fuel, because you're stuck in the snow. You're going to want to keep your vehicle running for heat or AC, even if it's in the summer. You can get dehydrated very quickly in a hot car if there was a road closure and you were stuck even in the summer. The next thing is power. Okay, power for everything, but mainly the reason we used it was for our cell phones when there was cell phone service. We have portable power units that are solar powered, that can be solar powered, that can also be charged just in a normal outlet, but we take those with us wherever we go. We have several of them, and they came in handy because when you are traveling, if you are stranded or if you are in any kind of adverse situation, you want to be able to conserve your fuel in your vehicle if possible for those people stranded on the freeway. Now, granted, vehicles usually have chargers, right? They have your USB charger for your phone, but that means that your vehicle, most of the time, vehicle has to be on. So again, you're using fuel in that scenario. If you don't need your vehicle on, or if you're just going to turn your vehicle on solely to charge your phone, wouldn't it be much better to have some alternate way that you could charge your phone without needing to have your vehicle on and wasting fuel? So I encourage you to have some other alternate means of charging your devices, whether that's your phone, whether that's your radios, whether that's whatever you have, so that you have communication and you have means to provide and protect for your family, to have means of communication for emergency. All those things, you want to keep your devices charged. Get a portable solar powered charger that can handle multiple devices. And the next thing is my big thing, food and water. Food and water should be a given, but a lot of times it's not for most people. Plenty of water, food whenever we go anywhere, even if we're just going on a day trip, 3-hour trip. I always have enough food and water to last us at least 3 days in the car, because even a day trip over there and back, if plans change, if we decide, hey, we're going to stay a little bit longer, or if it's, an involuntary stay of some kind, if some kind of emergency arises, always want to have enough food and water. A lot of people in the preparedness community always want to talk about, the gadget type stuff, firearms or the chargers or the solar this or the gas mask or the latest and greatest gadget of some kind. But what I always tell people is a lot of those things, there's a very slim chance that you will ever need or have to use them, right? That doesn't mean you shouldn't prepare for those things. I'm a big proponent of preparing with all those things, but you can never go wrong with food and water. You're going to need to eat. You're going to need to drink. So if you prepare with those types of items, that's one thing that is not going to go to waste. Even if times are good, even if there's no emergency, even if nothing happens out of the ordinary, you're going to eat and drink. You're going to eat that food and you're going to drink that water. So pack and prepare with plenty of food and water in your everyday life and when you're going on any type of road trip. The next thing that came in handy was warmth, ways to keep warm. Obviously, on a road trip, your first line of defense is your vehicle. If you're inside your vehicle, that's going to keep you sheltered from the elements to some degree. But again, when you're stuck on the freeway in snow and you have to have your vehicle off for extended periods of time, what other way it's going to get cold in there. It's going to get cold in there eventually. Do you have blankets? Do you have, obviously, if you're traveling, you probably packed clothes that are hopefully warm enough. But whatever that is, you should have extra means of protecting you against the elements. The elements are the number one quickest thing that will kill you in adverse situations. You could potentially go weeks without food, days without water, even if you have to, but adverse weather can kill you within a matter of hours. The next thing you should prepare for and have means of accommodating is how to use the restroom. Not very many people want to talk about it. I know it's not the cool, gadgety thing of preparedness. It's not sexy. It's not the coolest topic, but ask those people that were stuck on I-95 for 24 hours how they use the restroom. You should have means to use the restroom. I won't get too detailed, but if you're traveling, you should have some means. It might not be the prettiest thing. It might not be the most comfortable thing. It might be a slightly embarrassing, but you should have some means to use the restroom. Just fact, right? Just fact. You're going to need to use the restroom. You're going to want to do so without having to get out of your car and squat on the side of the road in the middle of the snow with thousands of other cars on the freeway. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is cash. You should have cash on you at all times. Some of the gas stations that we stopped at during our adverse weather conditions, traveling and having to take alternate routes because services were down and communications were down, their credit card systems were not working. They couldn't take credit cards. They were only taking cash. How many people actually carry cash these days? Not very many, but if you're preparedness mindset, you should have cash for those emergencies. Always have multiple denominations of cash. I won't tell you how much I personally carry, but you should have large bills all the way down to multiple smaller bills so that you can be able to engage in those transactions in an emergency. And this isn't just, like I said, wish list, far-fetched stuff. I mean, this is stuff we've literally encountered on these trips just recently, and many people do. Have cash and have multiple denominations because, again, not that many people carry cash. So if you go somewhere and you carry, $200 everywhere you go on a trip, if you carry that in two $100 bills and you go somewhere that doesn't have cash, or you're dealing with somebody else that doesn't have cash, or you're dealing with a business that doesn't hold a lot of cash, what are you going to do? You need 5-10 gallons of gas and all you have is $100 bill. Are you going to give up that entire $100 to just get enough gas and overpay and lose out on a lot of money. Hopefully not. Have smaller increments, smaller denominations of money as well, and keep that with you at all times. Cash, keep it with you at all times and use it only when necessary. I mean, you can use cash all the time if you want, but keep an amount that you won't go into unless it is an emergency. If you pay cash for everything, which I like to do, that's fine, but also have that other stash of cash, that other pocket of money, wherever you keep it, and only use that for an emergency. It will likely come in handy. So those are the things that come to mind off the top of my head. Those are the things that we literally had to use on this trip that we were so grateful that we had. Like I said, it wasn't something that we had to go out and buy. It wasn't like, oh man, there's no cell phone service out here. What are we going to do? We had the radios. It wasn't like, oh, this road is closed and we have no GPS. We have no clue where we're at. No, break out the map. It wasn't like, oh man, we can't leave the car running and to have the heater on and to charge our devices because we'll run out of gas. No, we had extra fuel. It wasn't, our phone's going to die and we don't want to turn on the car because what if we do run out of gas? No, we had chargers specifically for that. Plenty of food and water. Nobody went hungry. Nobody was thirsty. Nobody was even really uncomfortable for that matter. Means to use the restroom, means to stay warm, cash, all those things. And I'm sure there's more, but in fact, I know there's more. There's many other things that we had that we didn't use, but these are the things that come to mind that really came in handy and that we used and we were grateful that we had. So if you have more ideas, if there's other things that you take on your trip, go ahead and leave a comment and let us know what else you suggest. It's always going to depend and have some kind of, there's going to be variety depending on the individual, right? Depending on your particular circumstances. Where are you traveling? What method of traveling are you using? What kind of vehicle do you have? All that thing, if somebody that's traveling in an RV is going to have very different needs and very different capabilities than somebody that's driving in a Prius, right? So, and somebody that's traveling on the East Coast compared to somebody that's traveling on the West Coast, or all those situations, everything is individualized. So, I wouldn't take what I'm saying as those are the 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 things that I have. And if I have those 8 things, I'm fine. No, and that analyze your particular situation and do it, take that trip. If you have a grandma's house that's 60, 80, 100 miles away, whatever, make that trip and analyze what if. Analyze what would I wished I would have had. Whatever your situation is, actually do it. That's how you learn. Again, we're prepared with these things because we've been through this before. Because we had a theory of it would be nice to have this, this, and this. But then actually when we make these trips, we learn in the process and we're able to gather those things that we say, wow, it's a good thing. We almost needed that. We should probably have that for next time. So we're able to do that once you have that experience. It's all theory until you actually put it into effect. So I encourage you to do that. Gather the things that you think are necessary. Actually practice with them. Actually go out and make those trips or do those things. And you'll learn pretty quick. What would it have been nice to have? What would it have been really nice to have? And what would it have been absolutely necessity to have to continue to be prepared, provide, and protect your family? All right. Thanks. Get after it.